Hi, and welcome to another episode of my wonderful knitting life. My name is Margaret. Today you find me in Quebec, Canada. I am a teacher, a knitter, a crocheter, a weaver, a sewist. I'll try pretty much any craft that's out there. But today I want to talk to you about something really special that exists in the province of Quebec, which is where I'm living for my job. In Canada, we have 10 provinces and 3 territories. And although we do call ourselves a bilingual country with the 2 languages of French and English, the only province that really can say that they have the majority language of French is Quebec. I am working on learning French. I'm not bilingual, but I did take French in school for many years, and I did go to French immersion for grades 7 and 8, so that would be when I was 13 and 14. And at that time, that would have been the first time I was introduced to the really special culture of Quebec, which is weaving. And I was lucky enough to have a student exchange when I was in grade 7, and we went to a town near Granby, and I stayed or lodged with a French Canadian family. They were farmers, and the kids had to take a 1.5-hour bus ride to get to school every morning and every day after school. And they had 11 children and 2 wonderful parents who welcomed me with open arms. I spent about 10 days with this family. I got to tour the barns, learned all about the farming culture, but what really interested me most was the huge weaving loom that was in their living room. It at least must have been a queen-sized loom. It was phenomenal. And I didn't really have enough French at the time to ask more about this loom, but it left an impression. And 11 years ago, I lived on and worked on the Magdalen Islands, which is also a part of Quebec. And I met a teacher friend, Julie, and she told me about this organization, mostly for women, called Les Cercles des Fermières, which translates to the farmer's circle. And I'd never heard of it. And she had a few items, some woven tea towels, a blanket, I believe, and I was really quite mesmerized by this idea of weaving. As an Anglophone, I was well exposed to quilting, and I have quilted in my crafting life, but I had never done any weaving. So one day we were driving into town because we lived in a really small little village of about 600 people. And there was a Cercle des Fermières closer to where the grocery stores were. And we dropped in because she needed to finish something and drop off the key. And she gave me a little tour. And again, I was absolutely mesmerized by this organization, which you became a member, and that bought you the privilege to go in and weave on all of the machines. So I thought about it, and I thought, oh, I'd really like to do this. But at the time, my children were about 12 and 10 years old. And there was no way that was happening. As a single parent, they were not going to sit in this building for 3, 4, 5 hours while I wove. So that was not an option. But 4 years ago, while I've been living on the North Shore of the St. Lawrence of Quebec, I noticed that there were buildings in the towns that the town I live in and the surrounding towns that were the Cercle des Fermières. So I started asking around, trying to find somebody who spoke English who could help me learn. I really wanted to try this out. I am definitely primarily a knitter, and this channel will mostly be about knitting, but I just wanted to take the chance to share this with you because it is so interesting and very, very much a Quebec cultural item. So this organization, Les Cercles des Fermières, started in around 1915, and there were 2 men who started the idea. They got an idea from crafting circles in Belgium, where women would gather and share knowledge. And they brought this, from what I understand in my reading, to the Ministry of Agriculture in Quebec. And that's who took over the original founding of the Farmer's Circle. And it was meant to educate women who were in the country and didn't have access to a lot of city items or city knowledge that was blooming with all of the industrialization that was happening. So the women who were in the country were really left quite isolated. But this brought them together in a building when they had the time, and they learned more about agricultural, of course, but they also learned about cooking and knitting and sewing and weaving. And the weaving had already been a big part of Quebec culture, where many farmhouses would have a loom and also a spinning wheel as part of the home. And it was quite necessary because it was too expensive to buy fabric to make items out of. So the women would weave everything for their house. But this enabled people to get together as a community and learn from each other and learn more. And today, if you ever visit the province of Quebec, I would really encourage you to look up Les Cercles de Fermière, find out more about where the local community building would be, and to pay a visit. It's just an amazing, amazing group of people. In 2010, I looked this up, and there were 38,000 members across Quebec. It is the largest organization of women in this province. And even today, it's an environment where women can go out of their homes and create and have a moment of peace, maybe meditation, maybe socialization. I've met many women at my circle who will go just to take a break from family life. They need a different space, change their mindset. Some women will go in the early hours of the morning when they're not needed by their family and take a moment for themselves. And it really is a special, special place. So the video that I have following, there's two, I took last Saturday when I went to the Farmer's Circle to weave, and I have a little tour. I do have a couple of items to show you that I have woven, as well as I have a sweater on that I'll talk about too, since this is primarily a knitting podcast. So today what I'm wearing is the Calliope. I think that's how it's pronounced. It's a free pattern from a very well-known store in Montreal, Quebec, called Espace Tricot, which means the knitting space in English. And it is a very simple pattern. It turns out to be very, very much like a sweatshirt kind of pattern. I would say this could be knit by an upper beginner for sure, without any difficulty. It's a really very, very pleasant one to follow. It has some ribbing at the top, and the increases are put into the ribbing, which is something that's really different from what I've done in the past. Sorry, those are my dogs barking. And it also has ribbing on the cuffs. I'll just stand up to show it. And it has a 2x1 ribbing on the bottom, but it's very much a sweatshirt with lots of drape. The ribbing on the cuffs starts just past the elbow and goes down. It's a very wearable item. It would be great to put with wonderful scarves or shawls that you may be knitting. And I wear this a lot on the weekend and sometimes to work. I knit this out of Holst Tides, which is one of their lines of yarn. I buy it on cones. It's very economical. It's a great price point. It's from Denmark, I believe. And Tides is 70% wool and 30% silk. And I have knit out of the Super Soft, which is 100% wool. This is the Tides. I also have used the Coast, which is a cotton merino mix. And I also have the 𝐇𝐈𝐒𝐄𝐈𝐒𝐃𝐋, which is a very lace weight fine alpaca, and it's just gorgeous for pairing things with. The Tides, I really like it. Nothing wrong with it at all, but if I was to classify the Holst yarn, this one probably would be my least favorite. It's a little ropey. It's not super soft like the super soft, even though that one can be a little rustic. This is not superwash. And I'm a big fan of the non-superwash these days. So this is not superwash. It doesn't have the warmth of the 100% wool. So its advantage would be, it would be a great one for fall or for spring, but with the weather that we have today up here, it's not one for wearing outside. It just doesn't have the same warmth. I held the yarn double for this sweater, and it worked out really well. I went with a little bit of extra positive ease because I really like that drapey feeling in my sweaters, and I'm quite happy with it. I would highly encourage you to take a look at Holst, though, one of my favorite yarn suppliers. I talked quite a bit about it in my first video. But I just dropped in today to do this little video mostly about weaving and just to share the culture that I'm living in a different province, because I am from Ontario originally. This is not where I've spent most of my life, but I can say that this is my 13th year now living in Quebec, working here and really enjoying it. I've met lots of friends, and I find everybody is extremely, extremely welcoming, even though I am an Anglophone and not fully bilingual. So to get back to the weaving, I've been a member for about 4 years, and it's a learning curve for sure. I'm able to fix mistakes now. If I'm at a loom and I'm having a problem, I'm pretty good at doing that, but there's so much help to be had. Everybody is so willing to help one another. It's just a fabulous place to go. So one of the first things I started weaving were linge-à-vaisselle, which are tea towels. And I just wove a couple before the holidays, and you do have to wait until they are taken off the machine. They're not taken off individually as you weave. And so when I went last Saturday, I picked up a couple of projects that had been taken off the looms. So the first one I have here are 2 tea towels that I wove on one of the tea towel machines. So I'm really excited to hem those and put them in the wash, and then they all fluff up and they're ready to go. So when you get them off of the loom, they will have raw edges. So you very quickly have to, and I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to do it today. You very quickly have to bring them home and do a zigzag stitch with just white or gray or whatever you have on your sewing machine, just to lock those threads in. And it's not like knitting where, well, I suppose it is like knitting with raw loose stitches on your needle. So you really do have to sew those, and then you fold them down, fold them over twice and hem them, and then you have a tea towel. So I have 2 of these. They're joined together because I was the only weaver, but I will need to cut them apart and to hem them right there. But it's so much fun. And what I was weaving with was a cotton boucle, so it's got all these little bits that fluff up, and I really like how that turns out. It's very absorbable for drying dishes, and I just find it's such a great gift too. Like if you give these to somebody, it's handmade, they're so pretty, and one of my friends says, you know, every time they do their dishes, they think about you, which is kind of neat. So another thing that I've made when I've gone weaving are bags. So I have one here. This is a real recycling project in itself. So this is one of the big bags that I have made. And you do have to sew them together. So there is a bit of knowledge required on sewing, but it's very simple sewing. It's not challenging at all. But I did have a friend that showed me how to sew one of these together the first time I did it. And you have to buy these nylon handles at a fabric store. They're really easy to find, and I'm sure they're easy to find online as well. So this bag is a big one. These hold a lot, but they're extremely strong. And the really interesting thing about this is that I wove this with strips that had been cut from bread bags, plastic bread bags. So this has been really a recycling project in itself, where you take plastic bags that are really not going to be used anymore, and you cut them into strips and then you weave them in. So this bag was a clear bag with blue on it. So this is the clear here, and then there's the gray threads that were on the loom already. And then this blue right here is just the writing that's on the bag. So it's really quite amazing. Some women also weave with VCR cassette tape as well in these. So it's a true recycling project. I have one more. I think this was the very first one I made, and it's super heavy because I've got all my weaving cotton and materials in here. So this one was made with, Italian bread bags. So it's kind of like a Christmas color bag. But this one has been very well used, and the amount of weight that these will carry, you would never imagine. This one's got to be at least 20 pounds of stuff that's in here today. So extremely strong, very beautiful, and just a whole lot of fun. A couple of years ago, I gave these as Christmas presents to my family, and this year they all got tea towels, dishcloths, like I just showed you for the holidays. So they also made great gifts, and it's just a really nice thing to join in another culture when you have the chance, meet new people, and the learning curve is so wonderful. So I'm going to leave my video here for today. I am working on getting together a lot more knitting projects for my next podcast, but I have 2 little videos following this that you can enjoy if you wish, and it's a tour of Les Cercles de Fermière, so that you can see this wonderful little organization that we enjoy in the province of Quebec. Thanks for watching, and if you're enjoying my videos, it would be wonderful if you could subscribe and like. Thank you very much. So it's Saturday, and I've made a little trip to a nearby town that is called Port-Cartier, and in every village in Quebec, they have this really unique culture of weaving, and it has gone back over 100 years. At one point in time, every small house in Quebec in the countryside would have a loom where the wife and the mother of the family would weave all of the fabric required for bedding, clothing, drying the dishes, everything that you can imagine. And I'll have to look it up to see how old the organization of the Cercle de Fermière is, but it is a little co-op where you become a member, and that gives you the yearly privilege of coming to weave on these amazing machines that I'm showing you here. There's quite a number of machines. Let me see, I'm not sure how many there are, at least 12, maybe more, and each one has a specific purpose. This one right here is made up for weaving beach towels, but you can certainly weave other things on it. There are machines that are set up for weaving bags, and I've made a couple of those. So this machine is made for weaving small bags. There's also machines that are made up for weaving what's called linge à vaisselle, which in English we call a tea towel. So this is a tea towel machine right here, and the one next to it over here, I'm weaving on this morning. I'm weaving a dishcloth as well in 100% cotton. There are also very large machines. The one over here is used for making very big tablecloths, but you can adjust the length of the tablecloth to your preference. And there are looms for making throws, baby blankets, twin bed blankets, full blankets, queen blankets, king blankets, everything that you can imagine. It is an absolute fantastic little organization, and I've been lucky enough to find a friend by the name of Lynn who has been so kind to teach me all about weaving. And I started about maybe 4 years ago, and maybe 5, and I've been able to weave quite a number of items. So over here we have a bunch of tables, and on Saturday we have a group of knitters that come to knit. They call themselves Espace Tricot, which means in French, samedi is Saturday, so it means the Saturday knitters. And they come and they support each other with their projects, and sometimes they do projects all together and work alongside each other in the same project. I don't always understand everything that's happening because I am not bilingual, but I have always been welcome here despite my language deficiencies. And every time I have difficulty, there's always somebody more than willing to help me. So at the back side of our little, I like to call it a clubhouse. It reminds me so much of when I was a kid and having a group of friends in a clubhouse. This section here, where you see the little window, behind there is a space where they have a little store. And usually at Christmas, they have many items for sale, and all of the weavers are welcome to put things that they've made through the year up for sale in this little space back in here. But at the moment, we don't see anything in there other than some storage. We have a washroom, of course, and this door here is I'll just close that. This door is the office because there's always financial things to deal with when orders are made. And when you do weave on the looms, there is thread that's already on the machine. So you bring your own thread when you weave, but you do pay per inch for the thread that's already on the machine. And that goes back to the farmer circle, which would be what Les Cercles de Fermière is in English. On the other side, there's also other shared materials. Recently, the Cercles became the owners of a sock machine. And I believe that there's a few people working on learning that skill. So that's available. There's a sewing machine. There's a serger. We also have all of the materials here for the looms. And there's a storage space at the back with tables and chairs and more equipment for the looms. So this is my little secret place that I come to in Quebec to take some time away from the town that I live in and to really enjoy a new craft that I have been so lucky to learn here in Quebec. So as I previously said, this is the loom that I'm weaving on today. It is a Christmas tea towel, and it has this just wonderful pattern going on here. Let me move this. It's got a wonderful little pattern going on here, but I'm not the one really who invented that. Usually when I get to a machine, there is a little paper hanging on the machine. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 little papers, and that tells you what foot pedals to do in repetition. And the foot pedals are down on the bottom of the loom down here. And when you push the foot pedals, you have different threads that are lifted so that you can pass your shuttle through the machine. And that's what makes the pattern on anything that you're weaving. Now, when I first arrived, I do remember many of the women commenting on my height, because having long legs can be a real advantage on these machines. It makes it much easier to reach the pedals and to weave. But I'm certainly not a professional, but every time I come, I learn a new skill, and it is just such a wonderful break from the work week.